excited to get started here. Thank you for being here. So good evening. Thank you for attending the Washington County Chamber of Commerce Partnership State of Business discussion. My name is Josh Tompkins, and I'm the Business Development Manager for Dick's Auto Group here in Hillsborough. I'm also the Chair of the Public Policy Committee for the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. And just off the top, we're sort of conducting a very political forum on what is now, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, a very historic day in the United States, an anniversary of an incident at the Capitol on January 6th last year that just makes me think, as somebody plugged into sort of the political side in Washington County, as well as the business community and a lot of folks on this call, it just makes me thankful that, wherever you sit, left, right, or center, that here in our county, we, especially when it comes to small business discourse, always have good discussion. We're always respectful of others' opinions. We reach consensus, and we do it in a way that I think is what was the intention of how this whole process should be. So I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for all of you being on this call tonight, especially our elected officials. Thank you for being here, and thank you for doing what you do and acting the way that you do. So that out of the way, a special thanks to our sponsors, Fordham & Company, an inline commercial construction who made this virtual state of business discussion possible. You'll hear from, I know, at least one of them here shortly. In the past, the Washington County Chamber Partnership has hosted receptions prior to the legislative session, providing our legislators an opportunity to share and discuss their priorities. Many of you have probably attended those in the past. However, the last few years have been anything but typical or normal. In 2021, many businesses were relieved to begin to return to pre-pandemic conditions, thanks to the rollout of a highly effective vaccine and a concerted effort of strict adherence to OHA and CDC safety guidelines. Despite those efforts, many businesses have not yet been able to return to typical business conditions that they were used to, and now face additional challenges, such as major workforce shortages, supply chain disruption, and a persistent variant. It has never been more difficult or challenging to staff and operate a business than right now. Tonight, we convene as the Washington County Chamber Partnership, a collective of the 9 chambers of commerce advocating and supporting business in Washington County. Please refer to the electronic program. There's a link in the chat that Zach provided for additional information about the partnership, as well as the state legislators that are joining us today. We're grateful for we are grateful our legislators are taking the time out of their very busy schedules to be here tonight. As I mentioned, we always appreciate hearing from our legislators at our regular legislative receptions. However, we thought we would do things a little different this year. We thought it'd be important for our legislators to hear firsthand the thoughts and concerns about the state of business here in Washington County and Oregon. During our time together, you will hear from 3 business panels, each of which are ready to discuss some of the most pressing issues for business in our region. Each panel is comprised of our members' businesses. Although all our memberships are diverse, our businesses face some of the same issues, but in different ways. Keeping the doors open the last 2 years has been extremely difficult, but the businesses of Washington County have been tough, resourceful, and innovative in order to move forward. Although we have been resilient, our hope for tonight is that you walk away from this meeting with a better understanding of what needs are being met and where the gaps still exist. After the last panel, we have scheduled time for our legislators to ask the panelists questions directly, as well as questions and comments from our attendees as time allows. Now I'd like to introduce our first sponsor. This is Fordham & Company, LLC, represented by Katie Eyre. Katie, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Josh. At Fordham & Company, we're just an accounting firm. We're a bunch of CPAs. How exciting is that? And we've been around for 60 years. And I can tell you, representing many closely held and small businesses and a lot of families that are just trying to create their nest egg, we understand the value of having a voice with our elected leaders and making sure that businesses can thrive in a community where the elected leaders understand businesses and where businesses understand the challenges that the elected leaders have to face. So we are just delighted to have been sponsoring this part of the chamber for quite a few years now. As I mentioned, we're over 60 years old. We've been around in Washington County for over 60 years now. Last year, we were the 5th most diverse accounting firm in the Portland metropolitan area. We have historically been benchmarking with our industry standards at about 67% females in our staff. And we're really proud of our team. We fluctuate around 20 or so employees at any one time, sometimes more, sometimes less. As I mentioned, the profile of our clients, we see all spectrums of success, entrepreneurial risk, and just really what they're facing on a day-to-day basis when they're having births, when they're getting divorced, when they're getting married, when people are dying, when they're growing their business, selling it, buying a business. We're right there with them, and we see all the pitfalls and all the great things that they accomplish. Our clients, while we're downtown Hillsborough, our clients are in multiple states. We have them in Oregon, of course, Washington, California, Colorado, Texas, Nevada, Florida, and quite a few other states as well. The last couple of years, much like you, we've been navigating the pandemic. We never knew that we would ever be navigating a pandemic, but here we are, and we're kind of getting used to it now, 2 years in, and it's something that I think we'd all rather not get used to. During the pandemic, we've had an amazing, fast-paced list of tax law changes that have come through in helping folks impacted by COVID, and we have been doing our very best to distribute information out to our clients as fast as we can. We've been providing free services. We've been providing longer payment terms with our clients. We've been making the charitable contributions, and we've been keeping our staff employed even when we maybe necessarily didn't need them, because it's so important as we all navigate this pandemic, keeping our hope that we're coming out of it. So we have been quite busy, and I can tell you at Fordham & Company, we are surely looking forward to a non-pandemic world and getting back to business the way it's meant to be. So thank you, Josh. Thank you to the Washington County Chamber of Commerce for giving us this opportunity, and I'm so excited to share what businesses are facing out there with our legislators.
Great, Katie. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your support. Our next sponsor is Inline Commercial Construction. Unfortunately, Brandon Flint is not joining us tonight, but I would like to recognize Inline for their contribution to tonight's event. And with that said, let's get our program underway. I'd like to welcome Diane Danowski-Smith with the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce. Hi, Diane.
Hey, Josh, good to see you. And I want to really start tonight's program by extending our hearts and prayers to our friends in Hillsborough, the community devastated by the fire on Main Street over the weekend. And we certainly as I mentioned, our hearts go out to you, and just we let a collective gasp out when we saw some of that footage. So we are sending you all the thoughts and prayers for the rebuilding and anyone on this call who was impacted by the fire. And that's really the beauty of what chambers of commerce do. We support each other, we advocate for each other in the community. So I really am also appreciative to the chamber partnership here for all the opportunity to talk. And we are on a tight schedule, and very well scripted. So I want to make sure we get to everything we need to do. So a little by way of a quick introduction on myself. I am the owner of a small company located in Beaverton. It's a public affairs and public relations boutique firm, and I've been doing business advocacy for many years, and I'm also fortunate to be the 2022 chair of our public policy committee at the Chamber. We call it the Business Advocacy Council, and so we're so glad again to be a part of tonight's effort. We work tirelessly in each chamber of Washington County to ensure that the business voice helps to recruit new businesses to the community, helps to retain our workforce, and bring in new companies and new workers. And so that's what you're going to hear about tonight. Not only some of the challenges we're facing, but some of the creative and innovative ways that we're working together on that. So we're going to start tonight's panel talking about the pandemic. And I was on an interview earlier today and very much realized that the pandemic is far from over. We're hearing from companies that are concerned about bringing workers back. Many companies, however, didn't have the luxury of having workers work remotely. I know construction companies, buildings aren't getting built when workers are working remote, and restaurants and hospitals. And so many businesses in our community are facing some of the ongoing challenges with the variants in the pandemic. And so our businesses have all been uniquely impacted in a variety of ways. We'll be talking probably a little bit about supply chain and some of the other business impacts. So these are complexities that our businesses are dealing with, but many businesses pivoted and were able to work through and utilize some of the modern technology to overcome some of the challenges presented. And really, it's a new world. I think we can all agree that we may never go back to the way things used to be. And so I have to admit, I hate the word pivot, but we all have to be flexible in this business forward environment. So I want to start by introducing our three panelists, and I've played the Hollywood squares, and I moved all your squares and I put you at the top, so I'm going to look toward the top of my screen. But I'm really excited for the three panelists we have, because I have been able to connect with each of them and just really heard some amazing stories, and growth is happening, and that's one of the great takeaways I hope you'll get from tonight. So I'm going to start by introducing giving the names of our three panelists: Jelana Canfield, who's the owner of Jelana's Bake Shop in Hillsborough. Then we have Maria Halstead, the Senior Manager of Property Management at Washington Square Mall in Tigard, and Sarah Rosenbaum Murray, she's the Managing Director at Great Room in Beaverton. So panelists, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to kick it off. We are going to talk about COVID-19, some of the challenges, and then some of the best practices. I know that our panelists have been thinking about that, and I know they'll have some good things to share. So I'm going to let each of the panelists give a brief introduction of themselves, because I'm sure I couldn't do it justice. So Jelana, I'm going to start with you if you want to talk a little bit about you and your company.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jelana Canfield, owner and head chef of Jelana's Bake Shop. We are an online-based bakery. Our slogan is flavor focus, simply bake, because we focus on the flavor and not the sugar. We focus on cinnamon rolls, custom cookies, cupcakes, cakes, dessert bars. We also do wholesale and catering events. We provide our baked goods in various dietary preferences: traditional, gluten-free, vegan, and monk fruit non-glycemic options. Our services include individual wrapping, shipping, delivery, and COVID-safe pickup. And now that we are based out of our home. We converted our domestic kitchen to a commercial kitchen. My husband and I together have close to 30 years of restaurant, food and beverage, and hospitality background. So we take all that professional operational skills we have learned over the years and apply it to our bakery. And we have recently won bronze for our best bakery in Hillsborough. We're the only home bakery nominated and to win the top 3 category. And thank you.
Thank you, Jelana. Maria.
Oh, sorry for the technical difficulties. Hi, my name is Maria Halstead, and I work for the Macerich Company, who own and develop Washington Square and Square 2 in Tigard. I have a finance background, and I've been working in the retail industry for 30 years, with about 22 of those years with Macerich. I've managed several different retail campuses across the country, but mostly along the West Coast markets like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. A bit about Washington Square. Washington Square is a top shopping center in the Portland market that not only draws customers from the typical 10 to 15 mile trade area, but also has had a historically strong interstate and an international tourism reach, with shoppers attracted by our brand name retailers, obviously the zero sales tax, and the proximity to downtown Portland. This center is over 1.3 million square feet and home to approximately 180 businesses, with collective sales estimated at over $500 million annually. I sit on, oops.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I sit on a couple of boards. I sit on the Westside Economic Alliance, as well as the board of directors for the Tigard Chamber of Commerce. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone today.
Thank you, Sarah. Maria, I did not mean to interrupt you, sorry. And
That's
Sarah, tell us about yourself.
Hey everybody, happy to be here to talk with you today. I am born and raised Beaverton, a Sunset grad, and currently live in the area as well, so very dedicated to the West Side. My husband and I own and operate 3 event venues in the Pacific Northwest. Castaway Portland is in Northwest Portland, and we opened that in 2012. And then we opened a space called Block House, also in Northwest Portland, in 2017. And then Great Room here at 158th and Walker in Beaverton opened November of 2019. Really great timing for an event venue. But we just are making our way through this pandemic, and I'm looking forward to sharing our story with you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, so much. Maria, we're going to start with you. So managing a huge shopping center with 180 businesses means that you're not only thinking about and trying to ensure that customers are safe, but you are thinking about your employees and all the employees there at the businesses. And you're thinking about how the customers and the employees can remain safe and yet comply with restrictions and the regulations that go along with that. So would you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you and your colleagues at the Square are enduring, and sort of how you're managing those?
Sure, thank you. So there's lots of challenges, and I'm sure no one on this channel is not aware of the challenges regarding all businesses, particularly retail and service. But Washington Square's business population is very diverse. I mean, we include a luxury car dealership, all forms of retail, financial services, and food and beverage. Likewise, our tenants are comprised of both very sophisticated multi-billion-dollar companies with thousands of employees, right down to first-time mom and pop entrepreneurs. So their business challenges are similarly broad spectrum. But if I were going to prioritize some that are being discussed in the retail community, I would say certainly the concerns that we all hear about on the national news regarding supply chain issues is of import to all businesses, it's not exclusive to retail. Continuing virus concerns affecting people's shopping habits and consumer confidence, as well as discretionary income changes or reduction. Those are all important to the retail business community. The top issues locally that are communicated up from the retail group at Washington Square, and this probably isn't news to anyone, but staffing issues, which really are threefold. One is hiring. The availability of people looking for work is tough for the retail community right now. Also staffing levels, making sure, I mean, everyone is interested in following the guidance provided about staying home sick and isolation for potential or determined COVID exposure. Stores are quick to close their store and do a deep clean. Many of their staff have to stay home following news of a potential exposure. So this results in closures and whatnot for different retailers. It may change a little bit with the reduction of the CDC guidance on isolation time, but this does lead to frequent closures of businesses. Also, there's a trouble of retaining workers. Workers in the retail environment are stressed. They're having to deal with unruly customers, they interact with thousands of people a day. During the holidays, it's not uncommon to have 50,000 people walk through Washington Square on a weekend. So the number of people they're interacting with is causing them stress, especially as COVID remains a relevant concern for everyone. But also dealing with the conflicts over mask enforcement and interacting with people who are just dead set against not abiding by policy regarding masking. There is a growing non-compliance of COVID mandates in the public, specifically masking, and employees just don't feel equipped to engage with customers who are not going to comply. They feel unsafe. They don't have law enforcement background, so it's really difficult for them. Retailers have reported employees going out on leave due to this stress, as well as just not wanting to come to work under those circumstances. And although traffic, like I mentioned, is real strong and has been strong over the holiday season, we're still not seeing the out-of-area shoppers return, particularly the international consumer, which at one point we estimated to be about 10% of our business. Regarding mall operations, and I'm sure all the business owners had to alter many things about how you conduct business, as did the retailers. But the continuing pandemic and its effect on the retail industry in general impacts landlords' ability to attract new businesses, as some retailers contract or they're slow their expansion plans. It's real tough to collect rent from businesses who aren't making money in this environment. That's where we have been able to utilize and suggest to local retailers to utilize the grants that were available last year through Business Oregon. And those were really helpful, saved a few businesses at the mall. Also really difficult to standardize mall hours and other operating protocol. Thankfully, Washington Square continues to be really sought after destination in the Pacific Northwest, drawing not only our fair share of sales and foot traffic. So we haven't experienced a lot of occupancy concerns, but that is a challenge for landlords and anyone who is trying to attract retail business.
Thank you, Maria. That was outstanding. And next question is for Sarah. Sarah, with all the event cancellations, I'm sure you've had to navigate over the past, well, we're almost at 2 years now. Can you enlighten us a little bit about how it's impacted your business, your event space and event planning business? And then how has it impacted your customers who no longer have access to your space? And then as you talk a little bit too, talk with us a little bit about your growth strategies or your sort of emergence from this.
Cancellations. So yeah, in the past, almost 2 years, between our 3 venues, we have postponed or canceled over 360 events. So that is, for us, very significant. It's over $1 million in revenue that was forecasted that did not occur. So that's, along with those postponements or those cancellations, of course, is a lot of communication with clients, a lot of work on the back end, negotiations. Our clients oftentimes were asking us about refunds and things like that. So it's not just that the event's not happening, but there's a negotiation there that has to occur that feels fair to everybody. So It's been really challenging. Between 2019 and 2020, our revenue fell year over year 90%. And then for this past year of 2021, it was still 45% below what it was in 2019. So in the events industry, there's a lot of news about how weddings were coming back, and there were a lot of weddings this last year, which we're very thankful for. Lots of people getting married. They're tired of waiting. Folks who had postponed 3 or 4 times with us had an opportunity to actually get married, which was fantastic. But weddings are about 50% of our business. The other elements are corporate and nonprofit. When corporate isn't even back in office for a lot of our bigger clients, they're just not doing events. And so the cancellations and the postponements are really hard, but on top of that, in our industry, there's a lot of hesitancy. People just are not yet comfortable to book an in-person event. For now, with our newest variant, I don't mean to be a downer, but this is what we're experiencing. We've had 5 clients that were booked in January and February, either postpone or cancel still, which for us is roughly, a third of what we have planned for the next couple months. So we are fighting, we're here, but the events industry is hit really hard. We partner with many catering companies, rental companies, audiovisual companies. So it's just sort of a domino effect in our industry. When venues aren't able to operate, of course, those other partners aren't able to as well. Catering pivoted a bit. They were able to do deliveries and things, which was fantastic. There's so much innovation in our industry. We're very scrappy. But yeah, the cancellations and the postponements have been something that just has not stopped for the past 2 years. It's been consistent. Our strategy for growth and what we're doing moving forward, we have all the things. We have the air circulation, we have the sanitizer, we have the masks. We are in communication with our clients, with our nonprofit clients who have been working with us year over year. And we are working with our landlords the best we can and the banks for the buildings that we own. But quite honestly, I think that there's only so much wiggle room left with banks and whatnot with the pandemic. So it's sort of maybe almost the scariest time for us, in that the flexibility and the money coming from the government and things like that seems to be slow. Like we're supposed to be recovered and we're just not yet recovered. So yeah, we do look forward to this upcoming summer. It should be full. We do have quite a few events on the books for once we hit May, June, July, August. So we are looking forward to that.
Thank you, Sarah. I noticed that both you and Maria touched on a very important point, and that no business operates in a vacuum or operates solo. We have to work closely with other businesses that are vendors and suppliers. And so when one business is impacted, the impact is often felt, on down the line. And so that's a really important piece that you've added and a really important consideration. So thank you. Jelana, lovely for you. Also, I know that we are excited that you're here because we understand that you're transitioning your business from a home-based business to now a bricks and mortar. So congratulations, and sounds like some expansion is happening, and that's the good news that we hope to hear more of, and we're glad for your bake shop. So tell us a little bit about how will this change impact your business processes and operations and policies to both keep your customers and employees safe and secure, and at the same time, grow this new entity that you're creating.
Thank you. So quickly, we started as an e-commerce during COVID. A little background, we started in 2019 as a business, but our website was very simple. You filled out a form. It was more of a part-time weekend job around my full-time job. However, I was laid off and my husband's industry had dramatically slowed down due to COVID. So we took all of our last checks and put it into advancing the bakery into an e-commerce. So in the beginning, it actually was profitable. Not that we would want a pandemic to be an asset, but we just from our background, we started offering things we knew could fulfill an area that was in need. So things like individual wrapping. For the first time, I think people were more open to a home bakery just because other places were either closing down or limited hours, limited menu, and the dietary preferences and the shipping. And really those three aspects really kept us going and got us more into the corporate world of providing large orders for corporations. However, this year we're we have this new struggle, which will lead into getting a new space. So when people were coming back to work a little, we weren't getting these really large corporate orders. We were getting smaller orders, which was fine, and a decrease in B2B revenue, but an increase to B2C revenue, which was very helpful. And it made us realize that we are ready to be in a brick and mortar. We brought on 2 employees. However, now that we're transitioning to a brick and mortar, I do have a different perspective. Originally, when I wanted to open up a brick and mortar, it was more customer service based. Now it's more operational based. So instead of the dream spaces I was visualizing with more of a customer service space, now it's like, does it have enough parking to do COVID safe delivery, curbside delivery, which is limiting some of the spaces I had potentially thought of, like downtown Hillsborough, or now I'm looking like, where is there a parking lot where people can come in, we can run out their orders to their cars to adapt if new legislations were in place. And another big one is I plan to employ more parents. Right now, one of our employees, of course, besides my husband and I, are parents. So there might be a policy where they may allow teachers to have Fridays off, which is wonderful. I of course, want that for teachers because I know working during the pandemic has been treacherous. However, this impacts us. Now on Fridays, are we going to be losing, and that's our big day, we have the employees come in. Are we going to be losing, our staff on Fridays? How do we adapt to that in a brick and mortar? So as I'm looking for a new space, I'm keeping those things in mind, how outside, not only do policies for food, beverage, and hospitality impact us, it's an industry that's impacted all around, just like the other 2 panels that we're bringing up. But even your staffing, it's not just getting the staffing. Once you get them, their family commitments are going to impact scheduling and keeping your doors open, especially if there's days off like on Fridays, or if there's new mandates regarding your school district that your business is in. So interesting enough, it's like parking and, following the school schedule is like a big aspect for me, because as a parent who has built up a business, and a woman of color, I think about those things like, how is this going to impact employees that have children? And those are concerns I have as I transition out of the house. And yes, I'm very excited about it, but it's a whole nother looking glass with these issues.
Thank you. Thank you, Delana. Do either of the, or any of you three have anything to add about potential growth strategies? We have a few minutes left, or about sort of how you're diving into 2022. What are you looking forward to? Or maybe answer the question, what would help you most right now as a business? Sarah, yeah, Sarah.
Well, I did forget to mention, we have had some clients that have had on-site COVID testing for their participants, which I think has been really helpful, easing the mind of folks if they're going into a meeting or an event with others. So there are services that provide that, which have been really helpful. For us, just continued, what would be helpful is just continued communication like this, being aware if there's grant opportunities. I know there's some money that's set aside for the events industry in particular that Business Oregon is working on right now. It was approved in June, but hasn't been rolled out yet. So I'm on the Live Events Coalition of Oregon board, and we've been working really closely with Business Oregon on that. So looking forward to seeing that roll out. Yep, and we're doing more video shoots and different types of events that we like, art galleries and things beyond the weddings and corporate events that we used to do. So just getting really creative about what we can have here at our spaces.
Thank you, Sarah. Maria.
Let's see, hiring incentives would be helpful if there's any ability to impact businesses being able to hire folks, because that's really a shortfall in the retail industry. Like Sarah mentioned, making sure that small businesses in particular know about grant programs. I can't say enough about how helpful it was to work with Business Oregon. And that was a really great way to, for I think 5 of our local businesses took advantage of that. And we need help managing the regulatory mandates, such as the expanded cumulative business tax structure. For example, the recently passed corporate activities tax, mandatory wage laws. It's been, I mean, I know it's old news, but trying to get someone to come in and fill spots that are open by folks who call off sick is really difficult when you have to provide the 2-week notice. These are all things intended to help people be able to regulate their schedules. It's just really been a challenge in this pandemic situation.
Thank you, Maria. Good, great points. And Delana, what about you?
2 major things come to mind. One, of course, is always operational adapting. How to keep your operations structure solid, but adapting to policies and your customer base. How is it still more efficient for them to whether receive your products, enjoying your products without sacrificing your core values and what you're selling. But yeah, with pricing is always a fine balance, especially during a pandemic. You know, even though there's all these jobs, a lot of things people are saying is it still paying enough to cover your family's expenses? And I would say that the second is finding that balance with your issues as an owner. And this is for everyone on not just the panel, but everyone in this meeting, whether you're a legislator, a business owner, finding that balance and how these policies trickle down and affect the employees in their home, like everyday life. I know in my background, everything from being a server, I didn't understand why an owner would do that and be frustrated. But then when I got into management and you're seeing both sides, you're like, oh, well, the owner had to do it because there's this new policy that came out through their county or city government. And I've worked in food and beverage in numerous states, and I've seen how it impacts dramatically, especially when I was in management, on both sides, because now you're seeing both perspective, the owner's perspective and the employee's perspective. So just keeping in mind how that trickles down to the employees, the staff, and their families, because it's very cyclical.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Thank you, Jelana, Maria, Sarah. We appreciate your participation on this panel and how you've shared the real life stories of really what's happening on the ground in terms of the pandemic impact. So with that, I thank our panel. I'm going to kick it off to my next, to the next panel moderator, Tom Markgraf, who will be facilitating the second panel on behalf of the Tigard Chamber of Commerce. Tom.
Thanks, Diane. Hi, I'm Tom Markgraf, and I'm the Government Affairs Director at TriMet. TriMet is a member of the Washington County Chamber and has been a member of the Tigard Chamber for more than 20 years. And we are proud to serve this region's transit needs. Like many of you turning into this discussion, I'm one of those volunteers who help provide direction and feedback to chamber staff, because all chambers are member-driven, nonprofit organizations. As a chair of Tigard's Chamber's Government Affairs Committee, I often find myself navigating with a great group of people through tough policy issues across the region. I'm here today to lead a discussion on an issue that's plagued many industries and businesses in Washington County, the current workforce challenge. Numbers indicate that employment is hitting the lowest point since the beginning of the pandemic. The businesses have not been able to fill up their positions. This is going to have a huge economic impact and will continue to hinder our efforts of recovery. Today, we've got three terrific panelists who are Washington County business people who will speak firsthand to their firsthand experience on this. And they are Ken Madden, Vice President of Marketing, Madden Industrial; James Mclean, Corporate Senior Manager in Facilities Engineering for Corvo; and Carlos Cortez, who is the owner of Casa Lola and Grill 68, sorry. I'm going to ask each of our panelists a question regarding their workforce challenges, but before I do that, I would like to ask them to share a little bit about themselves and their businesses. So Ken, can we start with you?
Sure, thanks, Tom. Yeah, so my name is Ken Madden, and I'm the owner of Madden Industrial Craftsman, which is an industrial staffing company. We provide labor to construction and manufacturing companies throughout the Pacific Northwest. We currently serve the states of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and most recently, Arizona. In addition to the staffing company, I also own a company called Madden Fabrication, which is a steel fabrication facility. We've done projects like the Crater Lake Lodge remodel back in the late 90s. Currently, the Tillicum Crossing Bridge, the steel for that bridge, we provided the structural support steel for that bridge. And we also provide a product line called the Portland Loo, which is a public restroom that was created here in the city of Portland. We own the intellectual property rights, and we sell those loos throughout the United States. In Canada, we have one in New Zealand. And we've been, in hot demand for those, for that product recently as well. In addition to my ownership of Madden Industrial Craftsman and Madden Fabrication, I also chair the Workforce Board for the state of Oregon, which is the Workforce Talent and Development Board. My board advises the governor on workforce policy, and it's made up of both business members, labor, and some of the state workforce partnerships. And then I was recently elected to the vice chair position with the National Governors Association, which is the Association of Workforce Chairs throughout the country. So we work on solving workforce issues throughout the country together, highlighting best practices throughout the land.
That's great. Thanks, Ken.
Yep.
Next up, we have James. James, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, clear as a
Great.
bell.
20 seconds of personal background. Oregon native, grew up down on the coast in Florence, engineering degree, Oregon State, Navy veteran, 6 years in the Navy. Wonderful wife of some 45 years that I met while at Oregon State, go Beavers. 3 wonderful daughters, one of whom is an emergency room physician in Yonkers, New York. So over the course of the last 3 years, healthcare workers are my heroes. If any of you have family members or close friends in healthcare, I bow down. They've done incredible things. I've been in high volume, high technology manufacturing for 37 plus years now at 2 companies. The company that I'm with now, it's about 12 years, is Qorvo. Qorvo designs, manufactures, and supplies radio frequency systems. We're a semiconductor house. 3 US wafer fabs in operation. The Hillsboro factory employs roughly 700 people at its site on Brookwood, just adjacent to the Hillsboro airport. Basically, those devices are RF amplifiers, filters, and switches that go together to enable internet communications. We sell to the internet applications arena, to defense products, and to mobile applications. So whenever you hear IoT, the Internet of Things, Qorvo is immersed in the Internet of Things. We, like other companies in the area, are experiencing huge difficulties with retaining and attracting employees to fill the positions that we have, which is an entirely new arena for us because these are good jobs. The training is intense, the pay is very competitive, the benefits are super sharp, and we've never had trouble like this. Attracting and retaining people before. It's a pretty amazing time. That's kind of where we are right now, and I'll await further questions.
James, that was great. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Last but not least, Carlos, can you please introduce yourself and talk about your business a little bit?
Hi, how are you? Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Cortez, and I've been in the restaurant industry for almost 35 years. I have lived here in Portland, Oregon for almost 15 years now. And we own 2 restaurants, Casa Lola in the Beaverton area and Grill 68, which is an estate house. Casa Lola, it's a restaurant that does a authentic Mexican cuisine. And Grill 68, we do great cuts and steaks. So that's what we do. Been here in this community, like I said, for 15 years. I used to be a director of operations for a chain of restaurants here in Oregon. And now here, challenging myself with all these difficult times to make sure that we offer the best experience to our customers.
That's great. Thanks, Carlos. Now, let's ask some questions. My first question, James of Qorvo. James, what are some of the solutions you've employed to get workers into your facility? And what are you doing now that you are doing differently?
Really, it's many of the same things amped up in a serious way. Probably the number one thing that I would mention is attraction bonuses for Qorvo employees, referral bonuses. We feel that the best way for somebody to understand what it's like to work at Qorvo is to have a relationship, friendship, a communication with somebody who works there now to find out what it's like on the floor. So we offer referral bonuses to our employees for connecting someone so that we can bring them in and take a look. We offer sign-on bonuses for new employees. That's not something that we have always done, but many companies of similar type to Qorvo are doing that now in the area. Routine internal equity checks, really almost on a monthly basis, to find out if our compensation and benefit programs are in alignment with what others in the area are doing. We hire only direct hire operators and maintenance technicians now. We used to hire temporaries to see if there was a fit for the person and a fit for Qorvo before we applied full salary and full benefits. We don't do that anymore. Full salary and benefits are available almost immediately after a very brief double check period. When somebody comes on board, you can drop right into a job with full pay and benefits rather than a temp job. Finally, recruiting events. We are participating through the Hillsborough Advanced Manufacturing Partnership in multiple recruiting events, many of which have been directed by first Delta and then Omicron to be online events rather than in-person events. But we participate where we can, and we try to make that work. The only other thing that I would mention is collaboration. Collaboration's our lifeblood within Corvo. The foolish engineer doesn't learn from his experiences. The smart engineer learns from his experiences, and the wise engineer learns from the experiences of others. So we leverage that just to death. And we're doing that with our hiring efforts and other companies in the area to try to understand what's working for other people that we could amp up further within our own arena. That's it, Tom.
Wow, James, thanks. That was a great response. Appreciate it. Next question, Carlos. Carlos, the restaurant industry has been really hard hit with the pandemic and faces difficult staffing issues. How has this affected you and your businesses? And in terms of cost of doing business and your ability to return to some sense of normalcy?
It has been very challenging for us the last couple of years. I have never seen something like this before in terms of how hard it's and the economical impact in our business. I remember in 2008, I was managing some restaurants, and it was very challenging back then. But this time it has been very challenging for our folks. And for us, we lost almost 50% of the employees during the pandemic. We rehire almost the 50%, but it's costing us a lot, the training part, and it's costing a lot. The fact that people, they're not committed right now to the work. It seems like they work for a week or two, you invest the money in them and they leave. So it's been very challenging. I will say they're looking for a better compensation sometimes, so better quality of work. In the restaurant industry, it's very hard for us to offer some of those elements like the big corporations, insurance and some perks. So competing nowadays with the big corporation is hard to hire good talented people. So that's one of the areas that we've been hitting the most in regards of labor right now. Inflation has hit very hard our bottom line as well. And this last year, 2021, it's one of the most difficult times, and on the cost of goods. Can give an example of oil. When cooking oil went from $24 6-7 months ago to $50 today. So it has impact very hard in our industry. We were able to manage our bottom line in 2020, even though we lost more sales, almost 35% on sales. We only lost like 15% on profit. In 2020, we lost only 15% of sales. On the other hand, we lost almost 40% of profit. So it has been very challenging for us. What we do right now, it's cross-train employees, trying to be very flexible with scheduling, try to help them to get more specific hours that they need. So we have to be very, very flexible with employees nowadays.
Wow, Carlos, that's such challenges. That's something else. Wow. Last questions for Ken. Ken, with your vast experience of staffing companies for more than your company for more than 30 years. Can you kind of sum up the current workforce shortage situation and how we got there, and how do you think we're going to be able to get out?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And I hope I can answer this in a way that gives hope to people, because I think we all are challenging. I know, I talk to employers all the time, and the struggles of trying to get people into the work. And I have to, if you have to go back before the pandemic, my company at that point was struggling to hire people as well. I mean, this isn't new. It's just been accelerated and expanded upon because of the pandemic. But we had shortages in a lot of positions, and not just in manufacturing and construction. Obviously, there's healthcare issues. There's, across the board. You could go down the list of positions that were struggling to find good people. When we went into the pandemic, there was a wrench thrown into the system, and as we got through the pandemic and the vaccines were rolling out, we had a lot of job positions that we were trying to fill, and we were being ghosted on a lot of those positions. We had a lot of people not showing up for interviews, not showing up for appointments. And so I reached out to the National Governors Association, and they created a white paper to find out what some of the issues were. And the three leading causes of those holding people back from jobs were the number one, obviously, the fear of the pandemic, the fear of the virus. Number two was the federal stimulus dollars that were put out at that time. Initially, it started at $600 and then was reduced down to $300. But there was a disparity on certain people and certain wages where you actually, it didn't make sense to actually go to work if you were making $15, $16, $17 an hour, because you could actually, collect greater money, a greater amount of dollars by staying home, not looking for work. And that created a mentality and an adverse effect on the workforce that I don't think was expected at that time. And then the third issue was childcare. And so we had several employees that had to figure out how they were going to deal with their childcare issues because schools were closed, childcare facilities were struggling or closed. And so now we're in a position where we're struggling to come back from some of those issues. The fear of the pandemic is growing again because of this new variant that is affecting so many people, but yet I think there's still hope because of the vaccines do provide a certain amount of protection, and it appears obviously the variant isn't as devastating as some of the prior ones. We still have the issues with childcare. Shortages occur not just in schools, but childcare facilities as well. And then the federal stimulus dollars went away, but there's still assistance to help people struggling with positions, which sometimes creates a mentality of it just doesn't incentivize people to go back to work, is what I'm trying to be careful with my words, but I think we've put up protections with good intentions, and that's the problem. There's a problem where sometimes good intentions lead to enabling, and that's where we have to. I know we have a lot of people that make rules and regulations for the state on this conference, and I'm just throwing that out there. Is that when you look at legislation, that you look at it that you're trying to do the right things, and I understand it, but you also have to look at, are we enabling bad behavior as well? So as we move forward, how do we get out of it? The things that I'm looking at are, we have a couple areas. One would be obviously immigration. If we could bring in the people into our country, we could solve a lot of these issues immediately. Especially when it comes to construction, because we've just now passed an infrastructure bill that's going to accelerate construction throughout the country. And we don't have the people to deal with that. Quite honestly, we didn't have the staff to fill those needs before the pandemic. We definitely don't have it now. So we're going to have to look at some type of immigration policies that work for this country to bring in people that we need to fill the positions that we currently have. And then we also have to look at the low end of the age scale and the higher end of the wage scale. How do we retain people that are looking at retirement and have them put off retirement, maybe re-enter the workforce again and fill some of the positions we have? And then how do we look at the youth and utilize them better? If you look at the age of 16 to 17, currently about a quarter of those youth are working in the workforce today. 20 years ago, that was about half of those people within that age group were working in the workforce. We've reversed what the trend that we need to look at youth and say, how do we re-engage them back in the workforce like we did 20 years ago? And we're doing some work with that in our state, in Hillsborough, as an example, with a youth apprenticeship program that will be working with the high schools, junior and senior high schools, putting them to work in a youth apprenticeship program where they gain not only their education, but also practical hands-on work experience with employers. So that's kind of new. That would be the first program within the state of Oregon. Hopefully that will catch fire and spread throughout the rest of the state. And I think that's going to happen. But those are I think some of the solutions that we get out of this challenge that we're currently in, where, people are leaving the workforce. We need to be able to pull them back in and attract new ideas.
Wow.
Ken, I have to amplify. This is Jim Mclean. Ken, I want to mention, I have a next door neighbor who has a mid-20s son who works in food service, and he made the same comment about whether or not it was really worth it for him to get up and go to work in the morning. And I thought, oh, that can't be true. I sat down with him and we penciled it out. He has a 9% incentive to get out of bed and go to work in the morning. You're right, it does encourage some difficult behaviors. If he stays home, he loses 9% total compensation, as opposed to going to work, paying taxes, paying for his benefits, et cetera. It's a very good comment.
No, and I will add one thing as an employer, from an employer's perspective. We did not lay off any of our employees when we went through the pandemic. And we had a lot of employees that did leave for specific reasons, whether it be childcare or the fear of the pandemic. The people that stayed and worked, they didn't work so much for the paycheck. They worked for the value of what work brought to their lives. And as an employer, I think you kind of forget about that. You have some staff and some people that you just take for granted every day, and they show up every day, and you just assume that they're going to do that. Well, they do that because they add value not only to my company, but to their own personal lives. And so I've shown more appreciation over the last 2 years than I've ever done, because I realize these, the individuals that work for me, I have to respect what they've done just as much as they respect that I give them a job. So there is a lot of value for the people that have stayed at their jobs and continue to work through the pandemic.
Thanks, Ken. That verged on being inspirational. Thank you very much. Once again, all three panelists did a great job. I would now like to welcome Steve Krautscheit with the OHSU Hillsborough Medical Center, who's going to facilitate the third panel on behalf of Forest Grove and Cornelius Chamber of Commerce. Steve? Are you there, Steve?
Good evening. Welcome, Washington County State Legislators and attendees. My name is...
Thank you.
Carlos, I think you need to go on mute.
He's on mute now. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. My name is Steve Krautscheit. I'm with OHSU Health Hillsborough Medical Center. We have been members of the Forest Grove Cornelius Chamber for the last 40 years and also participate with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. Back in August, the United States Census Bureau released population and demographic data for all of Oregon. What they found is that the state of Oregon grew at a faster rate than most states, and Washington County certainly grew at an even faster rate. Oregon's population grew by more than 70,000 people in the last decade. Washington County has built a great reputation as a great place to live, to grow a business, to work, and to enjoy life. It's important that we retain this positive reputation and standard of living. Washington County businesses overall provide well-paying jobs, and these jobs and investments in our communities provide for the amenities we enjoy. Tonight, our third and final panel will focus on the tax policies and economic development tools that help businesses succeed here in Washington County. Our panel members this evening are Joaquin Castañeda, Senior Manager of State and Local Government Affairs at Genentech, Sarah Streeter, Co-owner and General Manager of Specialty Heating and Cooling, and Katie Ayer, Tax Partner with Fordham and Company. At this time, we will have our panel members introduce themselves, and we will begin with Joaquin from Genentech.
Thank you, Steve. Joaquin Castañeda. I'm the Senior Manager for Local Government Affairs, State and Local Government Affairs here at Genentech. I've been in the role for 7 years. It's been a fun ride thus far. Genentech, we were considered the founding, myself as well as the company, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, Genentech, we're considered the, founding innovators and industry leader in biotechnology, manufacturing, and R&D. Our primary business is the manufacturing of biologic therapeutics, both for the US and international markets. We've been in Hillsborough and in Oregon since 2008, and we have roughly 800 employees, full-time employees, and that is between our Hillsborough campus and our patient support call center in downtown Portland.
Thank you, Joaquin. Sarah, will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here. It's been a pleasure to listen to all the panelists. I am the co-owner and general manager of Specialty Heating and Cooling. We are a local heating and cooling services in the Tigard community, and we have been in the community since 1985, part of the Tigard Chamber for probably about that same time, a really long time. And I also sit on the chamber board there as well. And we offer whole home heating and cooling from keeping your home nice and warm all the way to indoor air quality products for keeping the air in your home nice and clean. And we employ about 60 people here in the Tigard area, and looking forward to talking to everybody tonight.
Thank you, Sarah. Katie, would you please introduce yourself?
Thanks. I already spoke a little bit at the beginning as a sponsor. I'm going to drill down just a tiny bit here. A little bit about the firm that I didn't say is what we focus on. Of course, we do tax returns, but mostly tax planning, tax consulting. We do estate work, trust work. We do assurance services, which basically means financial statements if you find yourself in need of audited, reviewed, or compiled financial statements. We also have a financial services company where we manage, we are advisors in assisting managing funds if you need to go through that. And we do a lot of other miscellaneous accounting type things as well. About myself, as you mentioned, Steve, I'm tax partner at Fordham and Company. I was the prior chair of the Hillsborough Chamber of Commerce, I think back in 2004. I can't believe I'm talking about 2004 as if it was just yesterday. That was 17 years ago, Deanna. Where was it? Did I do the numbers right? 18 years maybe now. I've been in accounting for 32 years. I was also president of the Hillsborough Planning Commission, which, by the way, the Planning Commission to me was the greatest volunteer job I've ever had. It was a lot of fun if you happen to like that kind of stuff. And I also served in the Oregon House of Representatives as well. And I sat on the House Revenue Committee, which is, where they set tax policy. And I also sat on the Ways and Means Committee, which is where they get to spend the money. So that was kind of interesting. I did want to just give a general observation. We kind of sit in an eagle seat because we get to see businesses across industries, sizes of businesses, types of businesses. And we get to see what they've gone through and experienced. And we have observed during this pandemic, the last 2 years, we have observed some clients who have actually prospered in it. They happen to be in a business sector that met a need and prospered. We've had some businesses that are just kind of treading water. They're trying to just keep their head above the water and not drown. We have other client businesses that are white knuckling it, just kind of holding on for everything they have and not go under. And then we actually have some clients that have failed. Those tended to be kind of in the venue type things, entertainment industry, that type of stuff. They just couldn't come back fast enough. There wasn't enough help for them. So we've seen businesses all across the board and what they've observed. And so as we go forward, it will be with all of that observations that will color my responses.
Thank you, Katie. Really appreciate that extra detail because everybody here tonight has been affected one way or another, and you have a unique perspective. Our first question tonight then is for Sarah. Sarah, as a business owner in Oregon, how can our state legislators ensure we are maintaining a positive environment to help businesses like yours continue to grow?
Great, thank you, Steve. I'm here to represent the trades. Very passionate about the trades and what it can provide for, individuals and the local economy. Been thinking a lot about the question, consulted with my husband that I work with. He sits on the Oregon Air Conditioning Contractors of America board. He's been in the industry for a long time. Also met with some business owners today that are in our networking group that are HVAC companies to kind of get their perspective on this question, because I didn't want to come from a singular position. And what's interesting, it's been kind of a common thread through this whole meeting is workforce. And this goes back to pre-pandemic for us in the trades. It's always been knowing that we're coming to a labor trough where we have more people leaving than we have entering. And we've been talking about this since, I don't know, for a long time. And the pandemic, as someone has said, has put a wrench in it. Fortunately, we are one of those companies, as Katie mentioned, in an industry that has very much prospered in this environment. And it's because of the demand. So people spent more time at home. We also had crazy weather last year. We had, 2 weeks of ice storm. We had, I don't know what that heat globe warm thing, 120 degrees. And then we also have supply chain issues. So we kind of had a trifecta of supply and demand. So we joke around that we became the toilet paper of the home comfort industry. When people realized they couldn't have it, they wanted it. And then the demand was huge. So it's kind of a three-pronged approach for us, for the trades and my business to keep prospering and growing. Even though we've grown, it's been tremendously difficult grind every day, as many of the other business owners have. Just because you're prosper doesn't mean that you're not grinding or have tremendous amount of challenges to adhere to every single day. One is the labor. And Ken, I'm so excited to hear about the apprenticeship program. Love to connect with you outside of this. My whole family is in the trades, different trades, and I want the kids of the future to understand that the trades is not an alternative career. It is a viable career where we pay you to learn and provide a service that is recession and pandemic proof that's been going on. And then the second one is, I could talk all day on that, but I'm gonna let that ride there. We've talked a lot about that. And then the other big thing is watching inflation and supply chain has been tremendous on our industry, which a lot of other industries have. So for us, it's been really balancing that. So I'm a business owner, so I, have to watch the gross profit and the ability to continue to grow and be profitable and then still pay. So we've seen everything increase probably 30–50%. So what you paid last year is probably going to be 30 to 50% more than what you paid for it last year. Continued price increases every single week, sometimes from suppliers, down from the steel that we use to cut your fittings to the units that you put in your house, to gas, to ensure, I mean, every little trinket has gone up. So that's huge. Another thing that I love the state legislation to take a look at is the state tax credits that I believe they went away in 2017 for incentivizing homeowners for high efficiency equipment in their home. Those are tremendous for us to use to incentivize owners to continue to upgrade their equipment and more efficiency on there. So, but yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. I think you could probably go on and on about that. I'm excited about the trades as well, not only for our businesses, but for our students. We have been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know it's a common thread, and, put the pandemic aside, because every industry is feeling that, but, everybody went through the career readiness, and, a lot of stuff has been taken out of schools for kids, young girls, boys that are more mechanically inclined. I have a son who went to a college ready school, and you know what? He likes to work with his hands. He's not going to sit behind a desk. So he was never exposed to that. But luckily, he has family in the trades. But there's a lot of kids out there that need to be exposed to a very viable career. And I can tell you the wages are tremendous in the trades right now. So, and we pay you to learn. So.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Our next question is for Katie. Katie, as a tax expert and CPA, you are familiar with the Oregon Revenue Department. Would you please share with us your opinion on what has been the biggest change to Oregon's tax system that has adversely impacted Oregon business?
All right, that's a really big question, Steve. And I counseled with my colleagues as well, because I want to create a comprehensive answer to what's really eating at our businesses these days from a tax perspective. First off, a shout out to something that's going really well. As someone who interfaces with tax agencies, the Oregon Department of Revenue has really been doing a great job the last couple years. Nobody does a perfect job, but they've been doing a great job. And I do want to shout out to them, because they've been facing a lot of changes in the fast, brisk pace of tax law that's been coming down the last couple of years. And they've been doing really well with it. The number one issue that I would say impacting businesses right now is not just the complexity of nonstop new tax law, but new taxes. Businesses in Oregon, and particularly in our metro area, have now been hammered with 3 new taxes all at once. And we're all kind of trying to grasp, what does this all mean? It's not just filling out forms, it's figuring out, what does it all mean? The number one is the corporate activity tax, which is a misnomer, because it's not impacting just corporations, it's impacting all businesses. And it's a commercial activity tax and should be relabeled as that. Just an honest discussion with the Oregon community. That the new CAT tax is complicated, and it does not mirror the income tax filings. Now, I understand it's on a different tax structure, but you have certain companies that file an income tax return, but they might have sister companies, or not even a separate company, might just be a sole proprietorship, and all of a sudden they have to file a combined CAT tax. It is administratively burdensome to businesses in many ways. The instructions are woefully inadequate and not clear for businesses that operate in more than one state. And if there's any complexity to the commercial activity of an operating company, the CAT tax is, it needs a lot of work. And some of it could just be clarifying regulations or law, but I think it's a little bit more than that. It has caused a financial burden to our businesses, particularly businesses that have been teetering on breaking even or operating at a loss in the last couple of years, but because of the CAT tax, they have to pay money when they can't afford it, and every penny counts. So that couldn't have had worse timing. And businesses, as I go through on the other two new taxes, businesses don't feel as bad about paying new taxes if they can find accountability for the new taxes that they pay. And because of the pandemic, we saw that the governor's office said the CAT tax collections weren't going to go where they were originally designated for. And so, that kind of feels like a broken promise a bit to a lot of our clients. So that is the number one issue for businesses. But the other is, these are not state level taxes, but I think there's a state level impact here. Multnomah County just started effective January 1st of 2021, a new tax for preschool for expanding the preschools, and that impacts individuals. And then the metro area has effective same date, January 1st of 2021, a homeless for housing and homelessness and services for that group, a new tax as well. And again, accountability with all of that. So these new taxes, we need accountability for where the money's going. But I want to bring to the state legislators a couple of nuances with those new taxes. Even though those are local taxes, income taxes, there should be some break on the ability to layer upon layer upon layer of all these income taxes on top of new layered state taxes. And if you can't put some brakes on that layering of those local taxes, at least change the administration to being at the state level. Let me tell you the concern that we're hearing from our clients. For the Metro Homeless Services new tax, that's impacting anybody in the Metro District, which happens to be Clackamas, Washington County, and Multnomah County. It is being administered by the city of Portland. When those tax returns are filed by the individuals, those individuals that maybe live in Washington County or Clackamas County, all of a sudden are now handing over to the city of Portland their federal income tax information and their Oregon income tax information. And now we have one local jurisdiction in which they do not live being exposed to all of their income information. It seems like there's a lack of confidentiality there. And I think that is something that the state legislature could weigh in on, because that just seems like it's not appropriate. It just doesn't sit well in the gut. So that's on that. The other elements impacting business, believe it or not, is the estate tax exemption. $1 million. That seems like, gosh, I don't own $1 million. That's a lot of money. That's only for the wealthy. Well, the exemption's been sitting at $1 million for at least well over a decade. I don't know exactly when the $1 million threshold is, but when I was in the legislature in 2011, we went from the inheritance tax to the estate tax. We set it at $1 million at that point, and it had been $1 million. Let me tell you, it has not increased for inflation at all. And as you know, inflation, we've been hit really hard just this last year alone. But when the pandemic started, it wasn't unfathomable that a taxpayer might have had a $300,000 home, and that home might all of a sudden be worth $600,000. They've done nothing but stay living in their home. If they happen to have an IRA or a pension plan of some sort, all of a sudden they have a taxable estate. So either raise the exemption or at least allow annual inflationary adjustments to it. But that would be fair because at a minimum, that would be very, very, very helpful. Washington State, their exemption is over $2 million, and our neighbors to the south in California have no estate tax. So what we do is anybody of any income wealth, or excuse me, of any wealth, we export our seniors out to these other states, and we lose their income taxes, we lose their estate taxes. So we have to get smarter about what we do with that. And it is impacting the neighbor next door now, and it's impacting our own folks, because this is no longer for the wealthy. It's people who just happen to achieve that American dream of a home and some retirement savings, which we encourage. The other part about the exemption at $1 million, someone might have an estate worth $1 million, but they don't have a taxable estate. They have debt, something like that. They're all of a sudden required to file this estate return, and they die with just say a house and not much else besides that. they all of a sudden have to file and incur a lot of fees, professional fees. I've had a lot of clients die in the last few years, conveniently or coincidentally with the pandemic, but they've died, and we're filing estate returns with no estate tax required, and they're having to pay $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in professional fees to file that form. And so if we can change the exemption, we can at least, if we raise it, we can at least decrease the burden of the administrative burden of filing, or for a non-taxable estate required to file, at least somehow create a short form that doesn't require all the disclosures that we currently are required. I know that's getting into the weeds, but I think you can do some good work there as legislators on that. And that would really help a tremendous amount of people out there in Oregon. The third you talked about with workplace shortages of employees. And we're feeling it. Everybody's feeling it out there. And I want to offer a suggestion for small employers, a help for small employers. The talent pool is very, very small. It's very limited. And so there's tremendous financial burden placed upon the prospective employer to go ahead and hire these employees. Small employers are competing with large employers with ostensibly deeper pockets. Maybe their ability to pay those sign-on bonuses, or maybe even $1 more an hour wage, maybe a more robust compensation package. It's very difficult for the smallest employers to compete with the larger employers in our community. So I'd like to put forward an idea, a plan, and I don't have any details, but just a suggestion. For small employers, however defined, maybe 50, 100 employees, something like that, that a credit be allowed to them to bring their employment ranks back up to their 2019 levels, or to their February of 2020 levels, something like that, and give them a credit for the first year to help subsidize their ability to compete for the very limited talent pool. And that may help a small employer. Now, I haven't put a whole lot of thought into details, but just a suggestion that we do need to give some help for our small employers to compete with the large employers out there for the very limited talent pool. That's all I've got for now.
For now, I like that. Thank you, Katie. Great perspectives and some really good comments in the chat. So you want to take a look at that as well. Our final panel question of the night is for Joaquin. Joaquin, Genentech is located in Hillsborough, is continuing to expand in Hillsborough and Washington County. Please explain how the decision to invest is made by an international company like Genentech.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for the question and the opportunity to speak and share some insight in terms of how we go about in our site selection decision-making process for investments. And I'll give an example of our latest expansion. In 2018, I sat on a site selection team to assess the location of our new individualized therapies biomanufacturing facility. We coin it HIT, which is co-located at our Hillsborough campus. And while we were, assessing locations in Oregon and assessing locations internationally and domestically, what I came to realize is that we're actually competing within ourselves. We have sister companies in the U.S. outside of Oregon, and we have many other sites and facilities throughout the world. And all these sites, domestically and internationally, are constantly trying to bring more investment. Right? All the sites want to bring more investment and expand, make them more critical for the network. If I can kind of simplify that. And, when I sat on many of those meetings, a big factor was infrastructure readiness. Was Oregon ready? Do they have reliability for water? Is there reliability for energy? What is the permitting process? Do they have access to talents and workforce? Because that's a big factor for us, because when we build a facility, we build it fast because we want to ensure that we can bring our therapeutic the quickest to our patients. And so having that access to talent is huge, because we need to ramp up. For example, this project for HIT, it's 150 jobs that we need to ramp up over the course of 5 years or so. That's really tough when you're talking about very specialized employees with a very specialized skill set that is not that common. And so having access to OHSU, Intel, Nike, being in a tech cluster is very, very helpful, and it has been advantageous in actually bringing this new investment to Hillsborough. Another big factor in this decision-making process really is also incentives, right? How can we offset some of the additional costs that the business cost to do business in the U.S. in comparison to outside of the state? I won't name other states, and also outside of the country, which is even cheaper to manufacture medicines. And so many of these incentives help to offset the initial cost in building the facility so that we can have everything ready to go and ensure that we can build it fast and be reliable. But to really, and I give an example, we used SIP to actually bring our first facility to Hillsborough, and we utilized the enterprise zone to bring in the HIT. And that played a big role in bringing HIT to Hillsborough. We've committed to investing $175 million for this facility, and it's actually already increased by $20 million on top of that. And we've committed to create 150 good paying jobs over 75,000 salary without benefits. And so those two programs have been very key. And I've been in future conversations about, what's the health of these programs? If we want to utilize these programs again, what do we need to do? Are these programs going to go away, right? Like, those are conversations that I'm a part of on a continuous basis as we start talking about expanding our facilities to ensure that it's aligning with our pipeline of other molecules and therapeutics. And that's really, really important. But I think specifically for HIT, I think what really moved the needle was the all hands deck approach that the city, the county, and the state, and the chamber, and WEA in helping us secure the incentives to help us secure additional workforce dollars. And at the end of the day, to help us secure support for our permitting, especially through regional solutions. They were key. All these different agencies, different levels of government and associations were very key to help us troubleshoot any issues that we may have along the way, because that was a really big factor in coming to Oregon is, everyone's going to welcome us, but when we're going through the permitting process, how is that going to go, right? Is there going to be a delay? Because a delay of a quarter can mean tens of thousands of patients without medicines, right? And that was actually one of the very interesting fact is that was something that gave the site selection committee comfort that if they chose Oregon, they chose Hillsborough, they knew that not only would it be on time, that they were working their best to actually expedite anything that they can do to ensure that we can actually open our doors even sooner and to ensure that we can produce our medicines even quicker for our patients. So I'd really want to give a big kudos to the Hillsborough Chamber of Commerce, WEA, the city, the county, and the governor's office and regional solutions. Even the Port of Portland played a really big hand. Actually, the Port of Portland played a really big hand in helping us with our logistical challenges because our medicines sometimes get stuck on trucks and they are in traffic, and that can really reduce our production cutoff timeline because we need to get to PDX by a certain time for FedEx or for UPS. And so they actually helped us to create a freight flight from the Hillsborough Municipal Airport to PDX, which would allow us to actually extend our production cutoff time by 2 hours, which is huge for us, right? And so when we talk about what helped, it was definitely the incentives. It was the support, all hands support to help us along the way with both the incentives and as well as with the permitting support, and also the infrastructure readiness when we're talking about logistics to help move our product on time to ensure that not only that it can get to our patients on time, but it'll allow us to increase our production cutoff timeline to ensure that we can actually provide more medicines to our patients. And so that's kind of the overall kind of summary of like what really was big factor. So there's not one like silver bullet, but I think one of the two big factors I would say is the all hands approach from the city all the way to the governor's office, as well as the SIP and the enterprise zone, the BEP program that allow us to incentivize and offset some of the costs.
Excellent, Joaquin. Thank you. And thanks for those kind remarks about all of the different agencies that have helped make that happen. It does take a entire community of businesses to get a Genentech here, and we're thrilled to have you. So Joaquin, Katie, and Sarah, thank you for being our panelists tonight. I appreciate your detailed responses and insights. This concludes our panel interviews. Now I would like to introduce you to Nina Carlson of Northwest Natural. Nina is representing the Sherwood and Wilsonville Chambers of Commerce, and will be facilitating an open question and answer segment for our state legislators. Nina, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thanks, Steve, for that introduction. Like Steve said, I'm Nina Carlson. I do government affairs for Northwest Natural. Northwest Natural is a proud member of all the chambers in Washington County, but tonight I'm here representing Sherwood and Wilsonville Chamber of Commerces, and they are two fantastic groups that really help me keep up with the issues and the community leaders in the southern region of Washington County. So over the last hour and a half, you have heard from 3 different panels, 9 different business owners, sharing with you the most pertinent issues and challenges that businesses in Washington County continue to face today. As we know, these issues are probably not unique, but they are real and relevant to many businesses in Washington County. Businesses of all sizes and sectors have stories just like these that were given to you tonight. And we hope that these stories really resonate with you and give some perspective. Now, the next part of our program, it's been reserved for our legislators who have graciously joined us tonight. This is an opportunity for you over the next 20 or so minutes to ask questions directly to our panelists. We'd ask you to use the raise your hand feature, and I will call on you, and you can direct your question to whatever panelist you feel is most pertinent. If you still have questions at the end of the chat time, please put them in our chat area and we will connect you with the panelist offline. With that, we will get started with our elected leaders. And leading off, I see Representative Janine Solman has a question. Janine, floor is yours.
Thank you, Nina, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today. I wanted to just really go back. I appreciate the passion in this room, especially when we're talking about apprenticeships and trades. My youngest, I was a school board member in Hillsborough for 8 years, and my youngest sat on that couch in his senior year and said, I don't think the school district prepared me for the next step. And it was a school to career program through the chamber that really led him to his pathway. And now he has a union paying job, trimming the trees below the power lines, working like crazy for all of us. But this does come to a question. I wanted to just say the Student Success Act, had the very big proponent, or part of that was the Measure 98 fully funding that, which was career technical education. So that really falls into what Ken was talking about and what my son experienced and stuff. It's just, it's an amazing opportunity, a partnership for the career to school program, but also local school districts. And I know that Genentech benefited from a biomed program that was like PCC partnership, Hillsborough School District, and Genentech, and that helped their workforce. So I'm curious with the gentleman from Corvo, do you know if your workforce, do you have any ideas or thoughts about partnerships and creating something like this for your needs? Are your workforce issues more entry level, mid-level, or professional type specified jobs? I just wasn't sure if that would be something that would be beneficial, where you could tap into school district money and Measure 98. And
I think I'd be really interested to talk about that, and I would ask that you contact me offline. We link closely with PCC and their microelectronics program. The market for maintenance technicians for semiconductor equipment is a stunningly tight market with pretty amazing compensation possibilities for the people that get into that. PCC has a good background program allowing entry into that field. And really, it's to many of the large manufacturers' benefit to train their own once they get good, solid incoming candidates. And so our focus has been on the PCC link up. I'd very much like to talk more. That's it.
Well, that's the kind of thing that we're hoping to have, is have this promote more conversations offline. Now, I know that our legislators have more questions, and I thank Representative Ken Helm for coming to my rescue. Ken, the floor.
Thank you so much. First, before my question, let me just state my admiration for what all of you are doing in business. We know that it is not easy, and we understand that sometimes we make it more difficult at the legislature. Back in the before times, and I don't mean before the pandemic, I mean before I came to the legislature, I was a solo practitioner and I had my own law practice. I tried everything I could do to simplify my practice so that I eliminated as many of the barriers and difficulties of running a business. And through that, I came to understand how difficult it really is to run a good business. So when I look at what you're doing, I have nothing but admiration for your effort. And I hope that we can do things to make your lives easier in the future. My little bit geeky question is for Sarah, because the issue of tax credits for energy efficiency is ever on our minds these days as we try to move our economy to a carbon neutral position. And I have been actually frustrated by the legislature's inability to understand that tax credits can be very, very powerful incentives in some sectors. And so, Sarah, you mentioned the sort of evaporation of tax credits in your industry. Can you dig down a little bit into that and explain what you might like us to do to restore those?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Rep. Ken Helm. Yeah, I believe it was in 2017, the state, I'd have to go back, and I don't have all the details of what they were back then because that was a long time ago. But they are a tremendous incentive for homeowners to maybe, decide to replace equipment that they have been thinking of. So in our industry, we have two different types of buyers. So we have like emergency people that, their heat goes out or their cooling goes out and you have it replaced right away. And then you have the planned replacement individuals who, their equipment's getting older. We've maintained it for a long time. We've told them it needs to replace, and they end up replacing it. So those tax credits come into huge for those planned replacement individuals because it's not a need at that time. But if they can find that there's an incentive for them to do that, we do find that to be very lucrative to get them off the fence to do that as well. And then it's not just the tax credit, but, a lot of times if you're looking at, I related heating and cooling really back to a car. So if you're driving a 20-year-old car to a newer car, just the efficiencies and the gas fit, all of it that you get is going to be more. So you're going to save on, your utility bills and, just all of that and the overall home comfort of your home. But, for us, I know a lot of it, going to carbon neutral, going electrification is huge. We partner with PGE, we partner with Northwest Natural. So we try to play both sides of that. If you ask a heating and cooling person if going full electric is the wise thing to do. You're going to get a very variety of people to talk to. It's a very controversial topic in our industry because a lot of us have dual fuel systems. We believe in having gas with a electric heat pump is awesome. It's most for our climate, it's huge. I don't know if I answered your question. We can talk more about it. I'd love to. I got your message. And, there's a wonderful, amazing community of HVAC owners. The Oregon Association of Contractors Board is very active. I know a lot of heating and cooling companies in this area, and we do talk about it quite a bit. And we are one of the larger ones out there too as well. So I think, I don't want to speak all for my community, but I know that would be huge. I go back and I look at the revenue from 2017. Those were record-breaking years when we said, the state tax credits are ending. That fourth quarter was massive. So we're just beating them in a pandemic. But yeah, they're very good. And I think for the economy and for people and for business. And if you want to get people to move in a certain direction, tax credits can be very viable.
Thanks for that. I agree that this is an area where we can reach some win-win. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
We'll keep working on it.
Next, we'll go to one of my favorite senators, Susan Mclean.
Well, thank you very much. I'm not a senator yet, may never be, but thank you. I wanted to say that I just sent something to one of you personally because I wasn't reading the chat very well, but I hope the organizers can possibly give us a list of phone numbers and possibly emails for the panelists, because there was such a diversity of topic. And there was so much detail on some and different types of detail. And so it would be really, I think, more productive to have more of a one-on-one on a lot of different subjects. But the one that you didn't speak to, except for Genentech, and I thought you would be speaking more about it, and that was the area of infrastructure and also the area of necessities as far as modernization and, balanced infrastructure that helps a wide variety of businesses and a wide variety of products and different places where there's a need to get those products. And so we have a lot of infrastructure work going on now, as one of the panelists mentioned in a different framework. And that is, we're really looking for third-party validators and some real information from specific businesses about some of the infrastructure needs and some of the infrastructure responsibilities that you hope the state will pay particular attention to. So I just want to offer that up as a person who's interested and more than willing to give you opportunities where you can participate in different outreach efforts that are going on right now, from anything from the Interstate I-5 bridge to the Rose Quarter area. And then also just looking at how the infrastructure dollars are expected to be invested in Oregon in both a state framework as well as with our partners at our regional and local levels. And those are all very active conversations right now, and would love to have this particular chamber be involved in some of those detailed topics.
Well, we'll probably have time for one, maybe two more questions, but I'm very pleased to see my personal legislator, who is not a senator yet, Representative Neuron.
Hello, thank you. This has been so fascinating and really, I've got 8 pages of notes I've been typing the whole time. Thank you for sharing so much of your insight, everyone. I think my question, well, first I want to call out anybody that's brought up the importance of childcare, and that's an area that I've been working in, so thank you. And also in the chat, really paying attention to the importance of removing the stigma in entering the trade. So a couple questions, I think I'll throw them out there. I don't have a specific person to ask, so I'm sorry. So maybe we'll have to ask for hands to respond, but how are you seeing removing stigma in entering the trades be successful? in various sectors. And then specific to the childcare conversation, have your companies and organizations innovated in that space at all in ways that I, as a legislator, could lean in and learn what's working for bringing people back, knowing that this pandemic has impacted different community members in very different ways? I'm really interested in understanding how we can support parents who want to return to the workforce but are having challenges relative to schools opening and closing, childcare centers opening and closing, and also want to just throw in a value with a general question: how are we supporting not only parents but minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses to thrive and survive? I think that's too many questions to ask with the time we have left. So if anybody has a response to any of that, those are the questions that I have. And I'm going to drop my email into the chat for anybody that wants to respond directly to me after this. And the formula that I drop into the chat is the formula that all of the representatives here use for their email addresses. So you can apply that formula of email to any of the representatives on here, and senators are slightly different. All right, I'm going to stop my question and ramble there. Those are the things that I'm really curious if we can dive a little deeper on.
Well, I'll answer that question, since I employ a lot of tradespeople in a variety of crafts, from carpentry, electrical, maintenance. And, you know, we've made it a conscious effort. I've been in business for about 33 years now, employing those type of trades personnel. And we have to attract a diversity of those people in those trades, because they've also been predominantly male-dominated positions for a long, long time. And we've had to change that dynamic over the years to attract a more diverse group of employees coming into our company and into the trades. So it's been a challenge, and we've done it a lot through our advertisements. If you look at any of our advertisements, and you'll see people, we've got a couple I'd love to share, but they're really inspirational, and they kind of speak to what the trades do, because this country was built around the trades. We wouldn't be a country that we are today without the tradespeople that have built this country up, both in infrastructure, but also in manufacturing across the board. All the people we use in the advertisement are the people that actually work for us. So if you ever look at any of those positions, you'll start to see that. And we spotlight people continuously on social media that work for us and build them up. It is not an uneducated person that can construct some of the things we do. It requires an education. It does require more hands-on. That is a challenge, and that's something I love to see. We have driven a lot more CTE programs back into our high schools. I think we have to get a little bit more focused on some of those positions. I think there's been a rush. It was almost like a gold rush to try to get as many CTE programs into the school systems as possible. And we didn't really look at our community needs. We looked at what was easy and what was quick. So I think there is a greater focus now to get into those areas. On childcare, you know, that's a great issue too, because I think I've mentioned the three things that were holding people back in the workforce, and childcare was the third one in that. Well, we also looked at areas where we needed people, and the healthcare would be a prime example of that. We looked at trying to skill people up into the healthcare, where what we didn't look at is what were some of the barriers. And if one of the barriers is childcare, maybe if we had focused on childcare first, we would have been able to fill those positions quicker. I think it's sometimes, again, a rush to solve a problem without really looking at the structure in place and how we can move forward without creating additional barriers to entry.
Well, with that, thank you, Ken. Sarah, do you think you can wrap it up in like 1 minute, because we're about at time? But if you have a quick answer, we really have appreciated what you've had to say. So give me a quick one, and then we'll close the round.
Yes, I'll be super quick. The biggest thing for stigma around the trades is we have to make it not an alternative to a four-year college. I have talked to CT people in the high schools, and they bring me students and they'll say to me, this one doesn't have the GPA, or this one doesn't. We need to get the stigma out. We'll take a 4.0 student. This is an alternative. It's an awesome career.
Well, with that, thank you. I do want to point folks to Representative Noble's question in the chat about what is the one thing the legislature could do to help Washington County businesses. Hopefully we'll get that question out to our panelists and be able to get some of those answers back, because I think that really will sum up what they're looking for you over the next couple sessions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan Nowak with the Tualatin Chamber. And thank you guys for all your thoughtful questions and your participation tonight. Susan, it's yours.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Nina. Good evening. I'm Susan Nowak. I am the board chair for the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce, and I also chair our Business Advocacy Council. And I know we're short on time, but I really have a testimonial and a shout out, if you don't mind, to everyone here tonight, and especially our chambers and businesses. My 40-year career was as a development director and large event coordinator for nonprofits in the metro area. When I retired, I began volunteering for Meals on Wheels people in Tualatin, and we joined the chamber. And there was a reason for that, because we were a well-kept secret in our community and in the area. And I had chamber experience and knew that it would be helpful and beneficial on both sides. The chambers not only support businesses, but are a forum and a community support for nonprofits to thrive and bring awareness to the communities of the work of nonprofits. Today, nonprofits have to run like a business and face some or all of the same challenges as for-profit businesses, and can benefit from all that chambers have to offer. And as chamber members, nonprofits go from well-kept secrets to viable community partners, which is another perspective of the importance and good works of our chambers. And before I say thank you to everyone else, I want to say thank you to all our chambers for the work they do for nonprofits. It's appreciated. So, and first of all, I'd like to thank our legislators for your participation and questions at tonight's events. We appreciate giving us your time and being here. And we hope our panelists were able to provide you with responses that help clarify where business support is most needed. Our goal for this virtual discussion tonight was to let our elected officials know the businesses of Washington County still need assistance and consideration during the upcoming session. Although it has been nearly 2 years since the start of the pandemic, we are still recovering, as we all know. As we all heard tonight, Washington County businesses work hard to provide good paying, safe careers to our residents. We need you to keep all businesses of Washington County in mind when assessing new legislation, as this could be the difference between keeping our doors open or shut. We ask that you help us find solutions to the problems we currently face and maintain policies that help us to continue doing business in our great county. We also encourage you to reach out to any of the panelists tonight on this call if you have any questions, as they bring a wealth of knowledge when it comes to owning and operating a business. So thank you for listening and asking such meaningful questions. And thank you to our panelists and moderators. There is absolutely no substitute for the real life experiences that you shared with us tonight. And we also want to once again thank our sponsors tonight on Inline Commercial Construction and Fordham & Company, LLP, whose support ensures that these chamber events happen. So thank you all for participating in this virtual meeting, and we look forward to working together in 2022 to support our business community. Thank you.